my name is Rama Balasubramanian, and I'm with the Education Committee at the Society for Information Managers Portland chapter. As part of this group, we are embarking on an educational series, mostly targeted towards individuals who are entering the workforce or are looking to change careers into technology. So in this context, I'll be talking to several business and technology leaders to get their input and valuable insight on what it takes to make and build a career in the technology space. So I'm lucky to be joined today by two individuals who are leaders in their respective spaces. One of them is Brandon Gatke, and the other is Travis Luckey. Brandon is the CIO in CISO at Pacific University. He has certifications in ITIL. He has an MS in Master of Science in Applied Information Management and an MBA. Travis Luckey is the CIO, Chief Information Officer at Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, and he has certificates in change management, Scrum, ITIL, number of other certifications, and he's also serves on the education committee at SimPDX. Travis also, like Brandon, has a master's degree in applied information management and an MBA as well. So without further ado, I would like to turn this over to Travis to add some more to his introduction, talk a little bit about his background and accomplishments.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction. Very pleased to be here with both of you. Brandon and I have known and worked together and been friends for quite some time. So just always a pleasure to be doing something like this with an old friend. Let's see, you touched on the highlights of, I think, the resume. I've been in technology for my whole career and technology leadership for somewhere between 15 and 20 years. Right now, as you mentioned, I'm in state government at the Department of Environmental Quality. Previously, I've been an IT leader in healthcare, retail, high tech, and the food and beverage industry, and actually finance as well. So let's see, what's missing here? In terms of accomplishments, okay.
Fantastic. No, that's fantastic. Like that's a long career in technology, and specifically that many leadership roles. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. Brandon, would you like to talk about add a little bit more color to your background and yeah, say a little bit more, please?
Great, happy to do that. Thanks again for having me, Rama, and Travis, thanks for the invite. Always a pleasure to actually work and chat and kind of help emerging professionals in this. One thing, I've been in the IT field, give or take, over 20 years now, or operations. I've done some of that as some COO work as well. Similar to Travis, a variety of industries. I think I counted 8 this morning, and I lost track because I'm like, well, does that other one count? And like Travis, 2 master's degree. I met Travis in one of the masters, and then it was also his fault for getting me involved in the MBA program along with Manao.
Sorry.
It was a great program, and I learned a lot. And we'll get into that a little bit. Most of my career, similar to Travis, has been in the Portland metropolitan area, Portland, Vancouver. I did have a couple of stopovers in Seattle and in Southern California for some of my stuff. I've been in IT leadership for about 18 years, and I have enjoyed the fun, been a lifelong learner, and looking forward to contributing to some knowledge.
That's amazing. Lifelong learner seems to be a key right there. If I was listening to this, that's something I would write down. So great start there, Brandon. Thank you. Just to go back to where it all started, right? Like what was your lure? What drew you into technology? What made you think, I actually want to make this career in technology? Like that's amazing. Let me do that. Like what's that lure?
I think I'll jump in just briefly. I was attracted to technology from the time I was very young. I think it really caught root around probably early high school years for me. I had
Awesome.
an uncle who was an electrical engineer by training, and just kind of showed me how to do things like build a computer and to take apart a stereo system and to put it back together and have it still work miraculously. And so I was just kind of drawn to it, and it became a hobby at home for quite some time. And it was during high school that I ultimately just determined this is the one thing of all the disciplines that I've become familiar with through, just general education that is really inspiring. And I don't know how or what my steps are going to be to pursue this career, but I do know this is something I'm interested in and drawn towards. And recently, I heard about the concept of how important it is to stay focused on where you're going, but be flexible on how you get there. And reflecting back on the origins of my career in this space, I'd say that was very true. I knew from a pretty young age I wanted a career in technology and technology leadership, but I kind of remained flexible and adapted to various life situations along the way, and ultimately ended up somewhere that I'm very happy about.
That's amazing. Yeah. Brandon, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
My path, a little different. So there are definitely some parallels. So I didn't get into really, I played computer games, the bulk. I did what's called BBSs back in the day, bulletin board systems, the precursor to the internet. Yet I really didn't do more than I was a consumer of that. I didn't start anything. It wasn't until the end of my freshman year in college that I got tired of playing computer games on really cruddy hardware. So I went out and I built my first computer. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I ended up doing it. I'm like, wow, this is kind of fun. It's kind of easy. And by the end of my sophomore year, I was dumpster diving for computers in industrial parks, looking for spare parts, putting them together. And this is the dawn of the internet. I was selling all these internet capable computers to individuals who didn't have anything. And it was a lot of fun. I'm like, wow, okay, well, this is great. I was pre-med a little bit. I was pre-physical therapy in undergrad. And I just did a whole bunch of, volunteering inpatient and outpatient. I realized, my God, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And I ended up changing, majors 6 months away from graduation to speech communications. And so I changed into that, graduate, and a good friend of mine, and also a professional advisor who actually now works for Pacific, small world, said, what do you like to do for fun? I'm like, I don't know, computers, they're fun. Why should you do that for a living? But that's my hobby. And then it really dawned on me like, wow, I should really look into this. And it was through a contact of mine. I got my first job working help desk at a place up in Seattle. And the reason why was because I had a speech communications degree. And as you can see, I like to talk. And that was not a bad idea. But most importantly, I had fun. I was enjoying this kind of work. I was enjoying the problem solving. I was enjoying working with people trying to do that. So I would say that that's my first part of my career. I just stumbled into it. I just wanted to do something that I didn't hate. That was my first barrier. And as I started doing more and more, I'm like, wow, I really like this. And my first, 6 to 12 months, I went out and got my MCSE and my MCSA, which at the time were very, very helpful. I got my own Microsoft certifications because my organization paid for the classes and for the tests. So thank you. And when I got those, I'm like, there's something more to this. I had been a leader in retail during college. And now I was starting to kind of get the itch to maybe I wanted to do more. So my first IT manager job came only 2 years into the industry, and I came back to Portland and kept exercising that lifelong learning. But I'll be honest, I didn't have much of a career plan until about 5 or 7 years into my actual career, where I started thinking, what am I going to do next? And we'll save that for a little bit from now.
Sounds great. Good.
I actually have a follow-up question if I could jump in. I'm curious to know if Brandon had a similar experience, and I think you did, Brandon, from other conversations we've had in the past. So reflecting on early in our careers, something that can characterize all the way back to my first job, I was very lucky. I became essentially the IT kid for a small investment firm in Vancouver, Washington, where after high school, I'd get out, I'd go and I'd do a couple hours as their basic help desk person because they had no other technical person. But there I got my first real professional experience and exposure to some things I certainly couldn't at home. But something that was true of that job and has probably been true of just about every job since always been a little uncomfortable when I get started. I'm always reaching a little bit farther beyond my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And something that has helped me very much has been learning to just be okay being a little bit uncomfortable, like acknowledging what I don't know, but not being embarrassed by that or afraid by that. Just recognizing, hey, I see an opportunity here. I'm going to go for it. I know I can figure this out. And then doing what I can, being diligent and vigilant to close those gaps and get to a point where I can confidently make decisions and so forth. But Brandon, I'm just curious, like you mentioned dumpster diving and kind of being a hobbyist, but then deciding you're going to do it. Like, did you have a similar like feeling inside of like, I'm uncomfortable here, but I'm gonna do this?
Yes, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, and this will be a kind of a quick thing that yes, I got more comfortable with being uncomfortable, as I got older in my career. My first part of my career, my first 5 years, I was very competitive. And if somebody knew something that I didn't and wouldn't teach me, that my competitive spirit was like, I'm going to learn that thing that you're not sharing with me. And others who shared with me, it wasn't competitive, it was collaborative. It was wonderful. And I think a key part that you said, Travis, is, and this is vitally important that I've learned from people much wiser than me as well, is it's okay to say, I don't know. The important part of the next part of that statement is, let me get back to you.
To find out. Yep.
Yes. And you better get back to them. That builds credibility, that builds honor and integrity. But if you don't know, it's okay. Never guess at it, because I've guessed in my career and I learned those ones
Right.
Early on in my career, those really bit me. And so failure was a wonderful teacher.
No, that's all very useful. So if I may just go back, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like for both of you, it started fun, transitioned, like computers were fun. They were the new shiny thing. They were just, they created a sense of inquisitiveness, curiosity, and then you guys got into it, and then you found that, oh, this is making me a little bit uncomfortable, to Travis's point, but I like it. It's challenging. I want to do this. And then soon that fun transitioned into a career. So that's great. That's amazing. So to folks who are listening out there, start with something that'll keep you occupied for 8 hours a day. That's fun to you, or whatever number of hours you choose to work. And then work on it. Don't give up when it gets tough, and keep at it. And then, like Brandon mentioned, do what you say what you do, right? That's the paradigm. If you say to somebody, I'll get back to you, better get back to them. Awesome. That's great. In just moving a little bit further down in your career, at what point did it start becoming kind of serious for you? Like, I want to lead technology, or I want to be a leader in this space. Like, what was there a pivotal movement or a moment, or there were a number of them, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So Brandon, do you want to go first on this?
No, go ahead. I like this.
All right. I think another benefit in the way I got into this career was starting it as essentially the only tech person in a business setting. I was not able to kind of insulate myself in a technology silo and only speak in acronyms, as is a stereotype for some folks in the technology space. Like I started from the beginning having to be able to speak the language of business and represent the potential of technology or the value of technology in a business setting really early on. And like since that time, I've learned both academically and professionally that is a key characteristic of successful technology managers and leaders are the ones who can translate the technical concepts into business value and then speak the language of business. And I think that's ultimately, you mentioned Brandon and I having gone back for business degrees. That was why as well, just to try and make sure we really did understand the distinct contexts of various major business functions so that we
Right.
were better able to, I think,
Right.
connect dots and speak the language of the people who are depending on us. So that, as a result, it came really naturally for me in seeing success by being able to translate technology capabilities into business opportunities. I wanted to do more. I wanted to be able to impact
Right.
positively more people. I wanted to be able to bring more interesting and novel technologies in and use them in novel and valuable ways for organizations. And so that kind of the passion for connecting those dots, just those seeds planted and then ultimately flourished as
That's amazing.
my
Worth its
responsibilities
weight
in the
in gold.
organizations
Yeah.
grew.
No, that's worth its weight in gold to be able to, you know, boil it down into into language and constructs that the business understands and is able to relate to. I'll talk about like an anecdote from my career, but shortly after Brandon goes. Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so much of what Travis says parallels my own career, and it can be, and it doesn't really matter what state, well, what part you're in. If you're entering the workforce, it's like, it's great to know what unique value you can bring. And, similar to Travis and also my own unique spin on it is being able to walk into a situation and do a quick assessment and say, okay, what's the underlying value we're trying to achieve here? And from the very first part of my career, my very first day was basically, you've never really worked in a network environment. So here's Active Directory, here's Windows, here's 300 insurance agents that just got a paperless quoting system. And most of them have modems and have no idea how to use computers. And we just released this yesterday. Good luck. That was my first day, no joke. And so experience, it was from, it was very trial by fire. But what it showed me is my early expertise was, like Travis said, how do I translate what they're trying to achieve into
Right.
the business value? How do I translate the technology for them so that technology is serving them? And it was simple. I just had to tell them, it's going to be a learning curve at first. We're here to save you time. These forms save you from having to fill them out manually. You don't have to mail them in. It instantly gets into our system. The customer gets a quote turned around in 30 minutes as opposed to a week and a half. I mean, simple conversions like that in the early 2000s were still amazing. And
Right.
by telling them how they got to benefit was really what it is. And straight to Travis's point, those were kind of those pivotal moments like, wow, I just need to explain it to them, A, how it benefits them, but B, really how it benefits their customer or whoever the recipient of those services are.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah. That's right there. Like Travis mentioned. I mean, it's really the most important learning, if there is one to take away from here. Like I was saying earlier, very early on in my career, I'm going to date myself here now. I used to be an assembly language developer on the IBM S390. So, so I could read machine code like it was English. And so I was working on a system for those, British Airways, and Amadeus back then in Europe there was this huge conversion, and there were these two different huge systems. They had to talk to each other, and I was part of a small kind of sync up process that made a transaction from here up here in this other system. And I had to talk to 4 or 5 different people, and I was talking in the most complicated language that I could possibly think of, and I was trying to, while I was talking, also trying to impress them by how much I know about these systems and the bits and bytes of it. And forget being impressed, they didn't even want to talk to me. So I went back. I was thinking, what's going on? Like I'm so smart. I can feel it, man. You're just not getting me. And then eventually I realized I have to actually, it's not important what I know. It's important that they know what needs to be done. So the moment that changed in my mind, everything fell to place. 2 weeks in, we were all talking the same language, and things started smoothing out, and we were able to get that transition done pretty quickly. So
So Rama has a kind of a great question for that, and similar to what probably would you say that, because when you made the choice, I've had a similar thing in my career where I felt intimidated and I had to prove how smart I was. And so I do too much talking or whatever. But it's when I started listening more, the confidence kicked in. Would you say that it was kind of a confidence booster for you, that you like, no, I don't need to prove myself? That
100%. Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, the switch changed from, yeah, I don't need to, like, I am confident in my abilities. I know my skills, but at the same time, I know that you have your skills, and we both need to talk in a language that we both understand. And only folks who have spent these many years in technology will understand that we definitely can switch and speak a different language in, like, drop of a dime. Like, it would be so different that the words are English, but they seem like it's a foreign language. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So simplify, talk about the business value, talk about what you're trying to accomplish as if you're talking to a 3-year-old. And that's what's going to work. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah, actually, I have just a little, like, related nugget that I always like to share when we're talking about these kinds of subjects. And it's some advice that I got years ago in my career, which has to do with presenting information. And the suggestion is, when presenting, it could be in PowerPoint, but even if you don't have slides, whatever your talking points are that you have prepared, be prepared to answer a level of questioning deeper than what you present. So if you have a slide with 5 bullets, be ready to take a question on the what or the why for every one of those bullets. Don't put the what and the why up there if you're not also ready to answer a level deeper there, and kind of expose, like, you don't put it all out there, so that as questions come in, you're able to respond confidently and comfortably. Again, you will always come across areas you don't know. To Brandon's point, I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you soon. But generally, to lead with confidence when you're trying to present and convey information. Just great tip to always be ready for that one level deeper of questioning.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you for that. That's incredibly useful. Yeah, so I'm going to switch topics a little bit, moving on a little bit further ahead. There are a number of opportunities we see lately in IT security, in cloud computing, all these technologies. There's so many jobs out there. So for folks who are starting out on their career paths right now, would either of you or both of you have any advice, recommendation? Would you pick one over the other? Let's just say one wanted to do IT security. What would be your recommendation? Or somebody wanted to do cloud computing, make a career in cloud computing. What would be your recommendation? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you go first, Brandon. Then I've got a.
Yeah, I'm a little overly opinionated on this particular topic, so I'll try and condense this down. Both are phenomenal career opportunities. It's where IT is right now. IT is in security and IT is in cloud, computing, or what I like to call cloud enablement, whatever that is. But I mean, working with those software stack and those software services, which Travis is very skilled at it as well. I will say, from my professional and personal experience and what I've seen, security, of course, is a foundation. It's very important. It's also important not to have security get in the way of actually operating the business. So security professionals, every IT individual should hopefully have some type of security training elsewhere. Is it the hot commodity right now? Yes. I'm also worried it will soon turn into a security as a service, because security is 90% people. The technology is the easy part. If you're getting into security, it's really about how do you educate? How do you work with your coworkers? How do you mitigate? How do you remediate if you have to? And that's a lot more people skills than a lot of security professionals that I have encountered within my career, with few exceptions. Travis, I know a couple of them that are amazing people, and that's why they've achieved their career. I will say that I think the longest career investment right now, if you were to get involved, is definitely through cloud computing or cloud enablement. Everybody is seeing some form of cloud enablement, whether you use Google Drive, whether you use Microsoft Stack, whatever it is, there's a mix of cloud. The cloud is basically somebody else's data center, but you need to know how to interact with that connection. You need to know how to interact with those services. And the cloud is so complex. It's either as complex or as simple as you want. There's just so many career opportunities in there. Amazon has its own certification track. Azure has its own set, and everybody else has their own. And I'm sure Travis can add a whole bunch of insights into this. But I see security. Yes, it's important, but I see it turning into more of a service or utility or commodity as opposed to managing the cloud stack. It's going to be super complicated for the next 10 to 15 years. I really believe that, no matter what it looks like, from augmented reality, scalable compute, whatever you want, there still has to be humans figuring out how to get that business value.
So
Great
from what
insight,
you
Brandon.
just said, Brandon, the one thing I picked up on, and which I 100% agree with, is also that, you know, IT security is, I don't want to say not as much, but almost as much, if not more, about people skills and being able to relate to people and enablement, as opposed to getting in the way and only about, you know, certifications and, you know, things like that. That's important too, for sure. Like, not to take anything away from the CISSPs out there,
Yes.
100% there, but the more successful ones are the ones who are going to be talking to the business in the language they understand, explaining the ups and downs, and being willing to compromise on the final decision and get on the same page. Yeah, I 100% agree there. And regarding your input on, or your insight on cloud enablement, that's clearly where the future is. I agree as well. Yeah. Travis, you have
Good
thoughts
stuff.
to add?
Yeah, a couple things I think you touched on, Brandon. I just want to kind of underscore it. The cool thing about both cybersecurity and cloud is they are here to stay, and they've become already essential, like foundational bodies of knowledge that successful technology people will benefit from having, regardless of what they choose to specialize in as a functional area. Any technology worker would benefit from having a cybersecurity certification. Any technology worker would benefit from having a cloud computing certification. Not that you necessarily need to become a cybersecurity analyst or a cloud architect. It will simply help you understand that context that much better. It will help you engage with others who specialize in those areas, because there will continue to be specializations in cloud and cybersecurity for as far as we can foresee. So I just kind of want to underscore the importance of those being like foundational examples, both that you would not hurt yourself in any way professionally by pursuing additional, like, advanced training in either of those areas now, recognizing it doesn't have to be your career. It's going to be a part of your career, because it's going to be a part of every technology worker's career. So just something to build out that solid foundation of knowledge.
That's an interesting perspective too. And yeah, one I find myself agreeing with as well is that they are both going to be parts of the career, your career, whether you choose to completely build careers within them or just somewhere else, but they're going to be there. So that's, yeah, definitely a very great insight into that. Now, we hear these buzzwords lately: machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, data science. Like, any thoughts on, because those seem to be the new cool, shiny things out there. So that's where I get most of the questions, like, oh, I think I should just be a data scientist and things like that. So what's your guys' input into individuals who are trying to explore those areas? Like, where would you recommend they start?
Yeah, so I think there's two major paths, or there's divergent paths between being a specialist in something like AI, machine learning, deep learning, cybersecurity, or being more of a generalist and going down the management and leadership path. Even down the specialist path, you might find yourself managing a team of architects as the senior most architect. So I don't mean to say you can't also get into management, but I think both Brandon and I we went more of the generalist path in our careers so that we understood enough about what was possible across a broad spectrum of technologies and systems and services so that we could then identify a good mix of solutions to apply to business settings. And then we would work with specialists. We'd work with cloud architects and cybersecurity engineers to help make sure we were making the best use of these selected technologies. So I think machine learning and AI for a generalist like me, it's going to be a part of the technology solutions that we implement for business intelligence. I've got my eyes right now on the concept of decision intelligence and decision modeling, where you can design and model and test ideas in various scenarios, which are informed by just huge amounts of information drawn from all sorts of different sources, like customer behavior, like what your competitors are doing in the competitive environment, emerging business and technology trends, even the political situation at a particular time. But I am not going to be an expert in decision intelligence system architecture. I need to understand what it's capable of generally so that I can then look for opportunities to apply that in business settings, and then again work with those other technology people who have chosen to go down that specialist path so that they can then come in, apply their expertise, and help us get from here to there.
So Travis, if I'm hearing you correctly, then what your recommendation is, these are all areas that are kind of here to stay. So be curious, make an earnest attempt to understand these technologies to the extent possible, and make a mental map of where they fit and what context, what value they add, where they could fit, and be ready to deploy them when needed if you are going down that generalist path. But if you decide to go, as you're exploring these, you realize, hey, I really like this particular aspect, by all means go down that specialist path. And so start by being curious, touch upon these, and then decide what's best for you, because none of this is going to go to waste. Yeah.
Right. Take time to explore, learn a little about a lot so that you know where to go to dig deeper as the situation requires it.
Makes sense. Brandon, your input on this?
Yeah, exactly. And I would add that, the advice for having led some of the business intelligence initiatives, Travis helped me launch some, and others developed on their own, depending on what career I was in. One of the things that as we're seeing specialists, we also see the path of IT breaking off into business analyst or application analyst. That's kind of what I put underneath almost kind of that specialist field. That it's okay to be an analyst. That term is not a bad term. I mean, it's not. It is. Right. It means you have deep knowledge, or you can apply your general knowledge to a subset of very specialized applications. And in particular, the data science route, I find that value is not going away. I mean, that's going to be big for the next 10, 20, 30 years because our data sets are getting bigger. Yes, machine learning is getting better, but it still requires humans. Some of my experience in the machine learning space was actually rather disappointing. I worked with the Microsoft product for machine learning, and we were doing most of the calculations because, all we were looking at was great. I'm using a really super advanced Excel table with Power Pivot. Help me find my null value. Help me find my R-squared. Find the good stuff. And what I would say to the advice of folks that are looking at data science as a career, you don't need your PhD in it. I hired folks with data certifications from a 2-year community college, and they were amazing. However, they all had one thing in common, and this is a true thing. And this is why I didn't go the specialist route and why I stayed generalist. You have to have statistics. If you have a statistical, inquisitive mind, data equals math. And if you can do that, there is the human component, of course. But I strongly stress, hey, if you enjoy the mathematical side of the world, then that applications analyst, a business analyst, boom. If not, generalist, trainer, human interface. I mean, there's a lot of other things that you can do to help with that as well. So those would be my kind of advice and my perspective on the emerging AI and data science as it continues to evolve.
That's very interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. To be able to work with like pretty much everyone wants to be a data scientist lately. that statistics and that love for math is really where the differentiators lie. So a very valid point. I completely agree. So we are kind of close to the end here. Any closing thoughts? Any comments? Anything you'd like to leave the listeners with specifically? Travis, Brandon.
Sure. Yeah, a few things. We touched on a couple already. So one is we talked more generally about the importance of being curious and dabbling, but when you get into a new role, and recognizing you'll probably be uncomfortable, and that's okay. Take time to listen and learn. Just saturate before you act. I've talked to a number of technology professionals and technology leaders who are reflecting on lessons learned and mistakes that they've made, have talked about how they got into a new environment and made a sweeping decision that may have been big picture, the right thing to do, but they lacked operational and organizational context. Right. And they didn't understand the organizational culture well enough to be able to really execute. And they ended up tripping over their feet. And so I just say, when you get into a new role, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, take the time to listen and saturate before you try to make broad sweeping changes. Even if it seems obvious on day one that, oh, this data center is garbage, we need a new one, or we need to move to the cloud, or why aren't we using some set of services? Don't just pull the trigger on those big decisions before you really have the context. And I think another one that's really been valuable for me, we talked about generalists working with specialists. It's always good to trust the perspectives of other technology staff. Like when somebody, the term or the concept is trusting the boots on the ground. When someone comes to you with a problem they're experiencing in their work, don't just try to connect dots and solve it. Like, again, pause, reflect, but then ask what they'd recommend. More often than not, when somebody brings me a problem, they actually have a pretty good idea of what the solution is, but they're just not comfortable. They don't have enough trust in their own capabilities and perspectives, and instead they're looking to me for some wisdom, when in reality they've got the context. I don't. They're in it every single day. I'm not. And so at least starting by asking what they'd recommend, maybe then I can provide some kind of cross-organizational context that can help shape a little bit more that they might not have had. But don't just assume you know the answer. Don't ever assume you know the answer, because more often than not, you may know an answer, but it may not be the best one. So trust the boots on the ground.
Yeah, no, amazing. So two great points coming out of that. Anytime you get into a new role, wait, absorb, get completely immersed in the culture, understand the culture, and then make decisions. Don't be quick to make decisions. You might end up tripping on your own decisions there. And then the second piece is, when somebody comes to you with a problem, but before you jump at a solution or with a solution, just wait and listen them out. That's great. Okay, cool. I could use some of these things. Yeah.
And I would add that, two parts of the kind of closing comments. Part one is, if you're looking at a career in technology and then leadership, in technology leadership. If you're looking at a career in technology, the power, everything that Travis said, listen, listen, listen. And I would also add something like SIM, the Society of Information Managers, network with whoever you can. Find people who you might want to be in X amount of years and talk to them. there are so many mentors out there. They are willing to give their time. That was one of the failings in my early career. I did not connect with enough mentors early on, and it would have saved me a heck of a lot of things. But I've now since done that. I've had multiple mentors throughout my career, and they have provided valuable insight. The power of the network is amazing as well. I mean, Travis and I have been networking and working together as friends, but also as colleagues for, a decade and a half now, and it has been fantastic. Some of the best quality working relationships I have came through networking or were helped through networking. So don't forget to reach out. And that's kind of where, if you're beginning that stage, find out those. You can learn really well from there. If you're in IT leadership, similar principles apply, but you also are now in a very important role. You're in that role of support and leader, which means helping ensure that people in your team, on your team, have the ability and resources they need to get their job done. To Travis's point, trust the boots on the ground. Talk with them. That extend that empathy. Be trustful with them. And at the same time, it's okay. The advice is, there is no such thing as an IT project. There are only business projects with technology components. Why do I say that? Because if IT thinks of themselves two separate, we are a service organization where value is generated. We are adding value to the organization by being good at what we do and empowering the organization. But that can only come from taking care of your team, giving them development options, and really trying to strive to have the best positive relationship you can with them and also your boss. Work, final advice. You're going to spend a lot of time at work. It's okay to be content. Please don't be miserable. If you're miserable, something's wrong. Be content is okay. If you're happy, great. You can't maintain happiness all the time. If you can, be fun, have a positive relationship, if at all possible, with your boss, and that will reflect through to your team. And it's just going to be a good experience for you throughout the entire organization. We're not always that lucky. It's going to be different for your career, but just stay with it and network, and you'll get through it.
That's great.
Awesome.
That made me think of one last thing. Great insight, Brandon. I'm so glad we're doing this together today. I've learned a lot too. So as I do every time we talk. One more thought inspired by one of the points Brandon made is just that working in technology means being an agent for change. We bring change into an organization and technology, like when we implement new systems and services, and we also, in working with technology, it's constantly changing under our feet. So the stuff we've already brought in might be radically changing from year to year or more frequently. And there's this great quote by Peter Drucker that I find myself citing all the time, which says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And in technology, that really applies to like the human side of the change management. That again, we are change agents. The human side of change management. It's pretty easy to figure out the sequential steps to complete an upgrade or to implement a new system. There are great best practices and frameworks and models and checklists. But where IT people fall down is when it comes to helping colleagues adapt their behaviors and their processes to be ready to make use of these cool new systems and whiz-bang services that we're implementing. Otherwise, if you don't think about the human side of that change, people will resist the change. They'll create workarounds, or worse, they'll email your boss something written in all caps, or just send replies to announcements to the whole company that's just throwing shade on the whole purpose of a particular change. You've really got to be able to understand where people are coming from and help translate the opportunity, show them, build an awareness of what's coming, and then help them want to change, help them see the value on a very personal level, so that then they can embrace it and not be afraid, and then make sure follow up immediately to give them like the knowledge and skills needed to be successful with whatever that change is. And so I find myself more and more spending my time thinking about and speaking to the human elements of change rather than the technology side.
Oh, that's very insightful. Yeah, no, amazing. Like network, be in touch with as many folks in the space as possible. Be cognizant that technology is a change agent. So try to humanize that change as much as possible, socialize it, help people get on with the new platform or the change, get on board with it. All useful, valuable points. Yeah, thank you. This was great. I really, really appreciate you guys taking time to talk to me today, and it's going to be wonderful for the folks out there listening. Yeah, thank you.